Well, hi folks, welcome to another episode of My Life with Robert Burns. I'm here with Jim Thompson, my friend and colleague from Newcombe Burns Club. Hi Jim.
Hi Douglas, hi everybody.
We're going to have a chat with another of our cronies from around the Burns world. And we're back to Canada this week. We're delighted to have the Canadian director of the Robert Burns Association of North America with us. He's our guest tonight. So cronies everywhere, let me introduce you to Andy Harrower.
Hi, good evening, guys. Jim, Douglas, nice to see you virtually.
Hi, Andy. That's great. How's things in Canada? Good weather at this time of year?
We are. It's we are experiencing great weather at the minute. The fall is fantastic, and yeah, we're getting a wee bit of rain. Nothing probably that you're getting in Scotland, but no, it's still sunny days and rainy nights. But we feel enjoying it. It's good.
Yeah, something that Burns would be able to describe very well if he was there at the moment.
Oh, definitely. The colours and the trees, the grasses. It's great. It's not got the mountains or the hills in the part that I'm in, but it's certainly got some green plains. So no, it's a lovely part of the world.
Well, thanks for being our guest tonight on My Life with Robert Burns. I wonder if you could start off by just telling us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, of course I can, Douglas. I was born in Alva, Clackmannanshire in 1962. They say that's the smallest county with the biggest name. But yeah, whether that's true still or not, I'm not 100% sure. But grew up there and went to Alva Academy and really lived my whole life in Alva, although I did spend a bit of time with grandparents at a farm that was directly opposite where they lived. And that was my early teen years, which I thoroughly enjoyed. But I left school at 15 because but back then you could, once you'd sat your exams, you were free to go sort of thing. And I gave up a plethora of little part-time jobs I had just to say that I was working full-time in a factory for about half the wage. So it wasn't probably my wisest move, but there you have it. But it was only a temporary situation because I'd already signed up to join the military. And although I say I left school at 15, I actually didn't enjoy my latter years of school and hardly went for the last 2 years. And so I wanted to get away from school. And here was me signing up for the military for an apprenticeship. And the first thing they did was send me to a military school for a couple of years. And it was a wee bit different, the military school to Alva Academy, because in the military school, you definitely did what you were told, believe me. But I finished the apprenticeship and still in England, and then did my first 3 months at Borden in Hampshire. And then it came to the time where you would get posted into the regular army out into the big world. And at that time, I asked for places like Dunfermline and Glasgow and Aberdeen. And so they sent me to Germany. And I spent my first 3 years, and very good years, in a place called Herford, Germany. And it was the start of, I suppose, a career that saw me serving overseas. I pretty much was only in UK for 1 year, other than for education purposes. All my other time was spent overseas. And so as I progressed, I eventually moved from being a mechanic, went back to school, became an engineer, was posted back to Germany, from there to Hong Kong, and then back again to Germany on the armour side, and eventually commissioned. So I jumped out the ranks and took a commission. But again, still continued to serve in Germany. And then my last posting was to Canada with the British Army to Suffield in Alberta. And from there, I decided that I would see if the Canadians had an opening for me. And so I got a job offer from them and resigned from the British Army and was planning to jump straight into the Canadian. But unfortunately, immigration had other thoughts and it didn't go quite as smoothly. And so actually I ended up returning back to Scotland, and I was staying in Glasgow for about 6 months. And then things weren't moving, and so I took another contract overseas with the Moroccan army and went to live in Casablanca. And in fact, I'd only gotten there a week when Canada said, right, we're ready to start processing your application again. But the whole process took about another 9 months. And so it wasn't until 2012 that I went back to Canada, but this time joining the Canadian forces. And funny thing, after a year, they sent me back to Alberta, which was, I was quite happy with because of the links that I'd already made there from my time before. And from there, they'd asked me if I was serious. I'd written on one of my forms at some time that I'd wanted to travel, and I'd put down that I wanted to go to a place called Yellowknife. And I got a phone call in Alberta saying, were you serious about going to Yellowknife? And I said, oh yeah, of course I was, of course I was. And they said, you've no idea where it is, do you? And I said, well, it's up north. I know it's up north. It's north of Edmonton. And they said, you're right, but a bloody sight north of Edmonton, you know. And so I then went up there for 4 years. And from there came to here in London in Southern Ontario. So that's pretty much my career to date. I only have a couple of years left on this contract, and then I'll have to retire from the military, but I don't know what I'm going to do then.
So how many years have you been in the army?
That'll be, I joined the boys service in 79.
Yeah.
So, and then I was 32 years with the British Army in total, and this will be me 8 years today with the Canadian. So,
yeah, very good. And what sort of stuff did you have to do as an engineer in the army?
I started off as what they call a B mech, a B vehicle mechanic, which was normally everything that has got wheels we used to fix. And then from there, I always seemed to get posted with armored units. So things like originally it was the Chieftain tank, and then the Challenger tank. And then with artillery. And actually I was with the artillery in Hona in northern Germany when we all got posted out to the Gulf for the first Gulf War, but that was with the Irish Hussars, and they had the Challenger tank out there with them. So yeah, interesting stuff, but big bits of kit, you know, hard to work on, very hot. But
yeah, I can imagine.
No, it was good times.
And I would imagine quite a challenge to do sort of running repairs on these things, especially when you're in the field.
Definitely, and normally when things go wrong, it's you know, catastrophic. Losing a track on one of those things at a critical moment, it's never easy to fix. And no matter what you've got for recovery, at the end of the day, somebody's got to get out and hitch it up to the other one, or somebody's got to get out and fix the problem before you can move on. So no, interesting and good times.
Yeah, you must have been at some fascinating places.
Well, I mean, I always say my best post was in Hong Kong. It was absolutely fantastic. I think I was there 92 till 95, so a couple of years before the handover the hand back. But from there, there was the opportunity to go to China, to go to Vietnam, to go to Mongolia, Australia. It was just golden opportunities. And I have been very fortunate with my postings. I think one of the other jobs that I enjoyed whilst I was in Germany, they made me the training officer in Herford, Germany. And part of my duties there, the bulk of my duties there, was living in Bavaria, skiing. So I spent about 3.5 years with Her Majesty paying for me to sharpen skis and live on the snow. So it was quite good.
Amazing, amazing. And was that, obviously that was full time and presumably took up a hell of a lot of your time. Did you have a chance for any hobbies or interests other than burns?
I'm a very bad golfer, and it's quite surprising because of the amount of time I try to improve, but I remain a bad golfer. And I've recently become interested in cycle touring. So I like getting out on the bike. But through the course of my career, I've got 5 daughters now. And because at the minute, they're scattered all over the world as well. But so the family kept you busy as well.
And you want to give the daughters a mention?
Well, I got Sarah and Karen, my eldest two. They're in Glasgow, one just outside. Karen just lives outside, and they both work for the health service, so they've been pretty busy this time because of what's going on. And then Kaylee, who's number 3, she's in Toronto at the minute, just up the road, so I see her quite regularly. And then the youngest two, Jennifer and Alison, they're still living up in Yellowknife. They think it's a great place and are up there thoroughly enjoying it. So
yeah,
no, they're quite world travelers, all of them. But yeah, we try and get to see each other as much as we can, at least once a year.
very, very good. And I take it what told us that the cycling wasn't just touring, that you've been doing some cycling for charity.
Yeah, it was something that started last year, or I started it last year, which was cycling for the fight against cancer for kids that are born or contract cancer at a very early age. And so they normally set aside a month. And last year, I was up in Yellowknife when it took place, and the roads up there are limited, but I managed to get in about 600 Ks up there and raise a fair bit of cash. But of course, this year, I'd actually planned to come back to Scotland and go cycling up the Western Isles. And COVID put stop to all of that. And so I still took the time off work, but I started cycling around Ontario. And I felt a bit like, I suppose, Forrest Gump, you know. I got to one place, I got to Niagara, and I thought, well, I'll keep going and get to Toronto. And then from there, I went up to Barrie, and then eventually up to Tobermory. I find it quite amusing traveling around Canada, coming across all these places with Scottish place names, you know. But I managed to get just short of 1,700 kilometers, and I raised $1,500, which I was quite pleased with for a great charity. They do great work. So,
well, do you want to give them a mention in case there's anyone out there that feels inspired to make a contribution?
Well, it's called the Great Cycle Challenge of Canada. So if you go onto the website, I don't know if you could still make a contribution now, because the event was in August, and then I think they were closing it in September. But if you feel the need, and it would be greatly appreciated if you could, please go on to the Great Cycle Challenge Canada, and you can either give an anonymous donation, or you can look up Andy Harrower and throw a few bucks in there, and all for a great cause. Thanks for the plug.
Well, before we finish this section, Andy, I was quite intrigued with your email address. Is that a nickname or something that's in there?
That's actually what the kids started that, and they were kids at the time. They call me Papa Ganoush, and so I got the email address of ganoush@me.com. So that's the background to that.
Very good, very good. Well, I'll pass over to Jim now, and he'll get you talking about your interest in Robert Burns. Over
Thanks.
to you, Jim.
So, Andy, how did you get started with Burns in the first place?
Well, I'm sorry to say, Jim, that I never got it at school. I mean, Alva Academy was a decent school for sure, but I never ever encountered Burns there at all. I knew about him because my father was a butcher and I used to deliver for him. And I can always recall going to places like Cosnaughton Burns Club at the top of the hill and delivering haggis, you know, every January, or down to a couple of the Burns clubs in Alloa. But I'd never actually read his work or was inspired to look into it. But I had a friend that we were having a function at his house. I'm actually thinking it was my farewell party before I joined the army. So it was people my age, but also parents and family and friends. And as invariably happens at these events, you know, somebody's got to get up and sing a song, or somebody's got to do a turn or tell a funny story. And then they were all pushing this guy to do the address, as they were saying. And I can remember him saying that he couldn't do it because he never had a haggis. And then out of nowhere came this platter with a huge pair of rugby socks on it. And they said, there's your haggis, just give the address to the socks. And so we were all then sat down. It got our interest. And this guy, Tom Ellis, he was the local bank manager. He gave the address to the haggis. And I was absolutely spellbound. And I think it was also because he was talking to the haggis, or the socks in these cases. You know, he wasn't talking to the audience. He was addressing the haggis as if, you know, it was some king beast or whatever. But I was totally enthralled with that. And certainly when I left and I went away to join the army, I did get a book on Burns so that I could look and read the address to the haggis. And probably to understand it a bit more. I mean, I've got to admit, the first time you hear something like that, I didn't understand the bulk of it, but the passion and the way that he was addressing the haggis, it really caught me. And I would say that was the spark that stirred me to start reading Burns.
That's good. Do you remember your first Burns supper?
I do. I remember it fondly, and there's a negative side to it as well. I mean, obviously it was, as I said, within the military. And I was in England, in Borden in Hampshire. And it was a function in the sergeant's mess that was getting run by the driver training wing, which was predominantly Scottish infantry guys. And so they put this event on in the mess. And I can remember turning up and the mess bar was closed, which I found strange. And when I went into the dining hall, I could see this beautiful table all laid out, ready for the supper. But almost opposite every two spaces was a bottle of scotch and a pitcher of water. And I thought to myself at the time, this is going to be catastrophe, you know. But I did enjoy a lot of the recitations, and I did enjoy the spirit of the event. But unfortunately, I think there was too much spirit at the event, and it became a bit of a brawl at the end of the night. Nothing nasty, but I do remember coming away thinking that I enjoyed the night But if I was to do something like that myself, I certainly wouldn't be putting a bottle of scotch at every second spot, sort of thing, because of what it turned into. But it didn't put me off, that's for sure. So that was probably a good thing.
When did you first get involved with doing things at burn suppers?
Certainly with the military and certainly in the messes, it's normally a thing in the calendar every year. And I've even just seen it here, even with COVID on. Some of the units that we've got here have still got it in their calendar as an event to have. And this has been all over. I mean, I left the mess in Borden. I was up in Hona in Germany, and the mess had a Burns supper there. That first year I was again just an attendee rather than organising it. But when I then went out to Hong Kong, there was a good friend of mine from here, Eddie Flynn. He was organising the supper in the mess. And it's one of those things that, you know, these things just don't happen themselves. So you're Scottish, you can help, you know about Burns, so on you go. We also had the resident battalion at the time was the Black Watch down in Stanley Fort, and they had a big burn supper every year down there. So once you, like everywhere, I suppose, the more you attend, eventually you get the urge to put one on yourself if no one's going to do it. And I've just, wherever I've been, I've got involved with either organising or participating, and tried to make sure that I have a burn supper every year.
But you're certainly well known in terms of your recitation of Tam O'Shanter, and in 2014 you entered the competition. I recall being a judge at the time.
That's right.
You didn't win it, but you weren't far away. I take it you're still doing a bit of Tam O'Shanter now and again?
I do, and as you say, I didn't win it, and I came away, and I can remember thinking, you know, how lucky was I to be getting judged by the guy that wrote the book on Tam O'Shanter, you know, in and out of Tam O'Shanter. But no, I have read the book, and funnily enough, I've just watched Bill Dawson's podcast as part of the Tam Fest on Tam O'Shanter. I just find it fascinating. It's one of the things I love about Burns. You've done it in your book, Jim, where, you know, it's not just about Burns. You go into what was going on in Scotland at the time, and, you know, the history behind it, and what people were having to struggle through with, and even to an extent what was going on in other parts of the world that may have influenced Burns at the time. So it's not just about Burns, it broadens, certainly for me, my Scottish knowledge. And one or two of the works that I've looked into, you know, he's writing about on the heights of Abram here in Canada, you know, from the previous wars there. It's one track that I look at when I'm asked to either do an immortal memory. Obviously, being a military man, look at any military link, and through that, you know, I found that even in the American Civil War, there was American soldiers, not officers, but soldiers that were quoting Burns, you know, not reading them, but they'd learned it enough to, you know, they'd learned it by rote. They were quoting the guy who died some 50 odd years before, but we never had internet, or, you know, books were there available at the time. But again, you've got to think of the common soldier sort of thing. They had to go out of their way to get this stuff. But he was so well loved that these guys made sure that they got copies.
Would you say that Tam O'Shanter is one of your favourite poems, or do you have other favourites?
I would say it's certainly the favourite tale, and yeah, probably is. Although I do enjoy A Man's a Man. I think that it is an amazing piece of work because of how applicable it was at the time that Burns wrote it. And then if we look at how we've moved through the time, it still applies today. And even now, you know, we're all the same and suffering under this COVID thing that's going on at the minute. And there's other things that are splitting, you know, left and right. At the end of the day, we just hope that we'll brothers be for all that.
Is it an opportunity now for you to maybe give us a wee recitation, a few verses from something?
Yeah, I could. I'd enjoy that. I'll try A Man's a Man. Is there for honest poverty that hangs his head in all that? The coward slave we pass him by, we dare be poor for all that. For all that and all that, our toils obscure in all that. The rank is but the guinea stamp, the man's the gowd for all that. What though on hamely fare we dine, wear hodden grey and all that? Gie fools their silks and knaves their wine, a man's a man for all that. For all that and all that, their tinsel show and all that. The honest man, though e'er so poor, is king of men for all that. You see yon Birkie, called a lord, or struts and stares and all that. Though hunters worship at his word, he's but a coof for all that. For all that and all that, his ribboned star and all that. The man of independent mind, he looks and laughs at all that. A prince can mak a belted knight, a marquis, duke, and all that. But an honest man's aboon his might, get faithy many for that. For all that and all that, their dignities and all that. The pith, the sense and pride of worth are higher rank than all that. Then let us pray that come it may, as come it will for all that sense and worth o'er all the earth shall bear the gree in all that. For all that and all that, it's coming yet for all that man to man the world o'er shall brothers be for all that.
Well done. Very well done. That was excellent.
Thank you.
I bet that's popular, especially at some of your military events.
Definitely. And again, I can recall reciting it one night that we were just sitting in a little pub, and one of the guys, I recited that, and one of the guys come up to me and he said, "Thanks very much for that." He says, you wouldn't believe how those words and that meaning has touched me. And I said, well, that's great. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And it wasn't until I think it was last year, this guy's son brought out a book, and the title of which was Forgiveness. And actually, when you go into the book and it goes through the son's life, the father's life, the chap I'd met, and his parents' life, and I only then clicked at what he was meaning about how this work seemed so applicable to him. And yeah, it was quite touching. So I really do enjoy that work.
I mean, it's such a great poem and such a great sentiment, or not just a poem, a song as well, obviously.
Yes.
You're a member of the Medicine Hat Burns Club, is that right?
I am, yeah. I'm currently president of the Medicine Hat Burns Club, and to some extent fortunate that we've, in my 2-year tenure, we've had a couple of the Burns suppers and a couple of the Jolly Beggars banquets. But of course, since March, things have been put on hold, and actually, yeah, the Jolly Beggars banquet should have taken place last weekend, and like everything else, we unfortunately had to cancel that. But
You guys must do a fair amount of travelling about for your Burns life, because your clubs are quite far distant from each other.
they are. It's I actually find it quite surprising. Calgary is at least 3 hours drive from Medicine Hat, and then Edmonton is another 2-3 hours further up the road from there. And to go to Winnipeg, you're talking at least 12 to 16 hours, again dependent on the weather. But we still seem to do it, because it's there to be done. And when you're meeting like-minded folk at these events and made to feel so welcome, it's well worth the effort, that's for sure.
Yeah, and we have people complaining about going from, say, Mauchline to Largs for a meeting, so.
We still have people, and even in Medicine Hat, we have some members in Lethbridge, and we have them out at the base, which is a 45-minute drive. But yeah, we're well supported, that's for sure.
Very good. And you work with the North American Association. How did that come about?
I was a member of Medicine Hat, which was as a club, they were a member of Rabana. And I can recall seeing that they were going to go down to South Carolina for the annual the association conference. And so I thought, well, here's a chance to meet people coming out from UK, but also from all Burns clubs in North America. So I went down there to South Carolina, and unfortunately I had it scheduled that I would fly in on the evening before it started and fly out the day it finished. And although we had a great conference, I felt that here was an opportunity to visit a part of the world that you might not necessarily pick to go on holiday. And there was people that were arriving early and departing late. And I thought, again, rather than just attend the conference, make something of it. So certainly when we had the next conference, I arrived a couple of days before, played some golf, and then when you leave, leaving a couple of days later, then you've got a chance to visit a bit of the area that you're in. So you're getting Burns, you're getting company, but you're also expanding your knowledge of North America. And I was invited to become a director, one of the Canadian directors, which I jumped at the chance. And then since coming across this side of the country, I'm now the Canada East director. But a lot of work in North America is conducted on the internet rather than meeting up, because I can fly back to Scotland from here quicker than I can fly back up to Yellowknife. The country is so vast.
Yeah,
it's pretty similar down south in the States. So a lot of our business is done online because there's no other option.
And how about your daughters? You mentioned them earlier on. Are any of them following you in your Burns career?
Well, I was actually chiding one of them before, because she had said, Alison had said that she would learn the address to the Haggis. So I was asking her a few weeks back now how that was coming along. And I got a few stutters and whatnot. But they've been active. All the girls attended the Queen Victoria School in Dunblane.
Oh, yes.
And as a result, 2 of them are pipers, 2 of them are drummers, and one's a dancer. But when we've had the Jolly Beggars banquets, we always have a Poosie Nancy. And two of the girls have played that part for a couple of years. So I've tried to introduce them slowly and try and nurture an interest there. The eldest two girls attended the conference with me last year in Glasgow, and they thoroughly enjoyed it. And I keep pushing them to see that they do enjoy it for themselves rather than enjoying it for me, because it's a fight that we've all got in all our clubs and all our organizations as to how do we make it interesting to people of that age so that they want to come out and enjoy themselves. I mean, I had 3 suppers, 3 years on the trot up in Yellowknife, and the girls attended with me all the time and had absolutely fantastic nights. Not just the recitals, the singing. We introduced dancing at the events, only 3 or 4 dances. But it's always been the case that when the dancing starts, everybody gets up onto the dance floor. And we get nothing but positive feedback from the events. And so if that's what needs to be included, then I'll try and keep doing that. But
do you have a favourite dance?
No, my dancing, Douglas, is like my singing. and in true soldierly fashion, I just do what I'm told by the MC.
Very good.
You seem to enjoy the conferences when you come. Do you look forward to them?
I think they're great, Jim. And you've obviously been doing it a lot longer than myself, but the spirit that you find at those conferences, you know, it's fantastic. Everybody's got a common interest for sure, but they're so welcoming to people that have come from afar, you know, be it the guys that come from Australia or the guys from the States or Canada, but even people in other parts in the UK. Everybody's given such a good welcome, and I always find that there's always something for everybody at these events. You know, throughout the weekend, there is something that will take your interest, particularly, if not 2 or 3 things. So yeah, I thoroughly enjoy them, and definitely look forward to them. I've seen previous podcasts that you've put out, and one of the questions before was the heroes, and I think certainly the heroes of today's Burns generation for myself is that these people that are still continuing to travel the world, you know, your Willie Gibsons and Jane Brown, and you know, certainly the Federation presidents, Ian Mack and Peter using that, but you know, they're traveling the world predominantly on their own dime, and spreading the word of Burns, but also performing and joining in with the clubs that they're visiting, and it's a fantastic atmosphere. And as I say, I enjoy it so much that I'm trying to impart that on my girls. That here's a fantastic outlet, you know, and really thoroughly enjoy it.
Very good. Is there anything in your Burns life that you have still got ambitions for? Any poems you would like to learn, or any places you'd like to go?
Funnily, Douglas, I'd actually like to attend a Burns supper in Scotland, because although I've attended a few pretty much now all over the world, I haven't actually attended a supper in Scotland. Obviously, we've had the dinners at the conferences, but a January 25th or thereabouts Burns supper, I haven't made it back to Scotland for that. So that's certainly on the wish list. I do enjoy organising events, as I say, all over the world, and certainly when I organised the supper in Casablanca, we had 13 nationalities sitting down to dinner that night. And that was, again, a fantastic atmosphere, and caused me to get William Jack's book out so that I could grab some bits of poetry in all the different languages so that everybody felt a little bit involved in the evening. So I hope to keep traveling and hope to keep organizing suppers wherever I go. So yeah, that's on the list. Immediately, and I know we're in the COVID times, but Rabana used to be called NAFBE, which was the North American Association of Federated Burnsians. And one of the founders was a guy called Jim O'Connor, who, him and his wife Elma lived here in London. Elma's still with us. Jim unfortunately passed on, but Elma still lives here in London. And I would love to organise a supper here and have Elma come as a sort of guest of honour for that. So that's on my list to do as well. And remain active with the Rabana and the Federation.
Very good. Well, I think we're kind of coming close to the end of our time, Jim. Is there anything else that you want to ask Andy?
No, I've no questions to ask him. I just, well, I have one. Would you mind giving us a wee bit of your Tam O'Shanter? I'm not wanting no 224 lines, but here's a verse or two of Tam.
Okay. When Chapman billies leave the street and drouthy neighbours meet, as market days are wearing late and folk begin to tack the gate, while we sit boozing at the nappy and getting foo and unca happy, we think the land's got smiles, the mosses, water, slaps and styles that lie between us and our hame, where sits our sulky, sullen dame, gathering her brows like gathering storm, nursing her wrath to keep it warm. This truth and honest Tam O'Shanter, as he frae a renected canter, all dare when there are toonsat passes for honest men and bonny lasses. Ah, Tam, hadst thou but been so wise as ta'en thine ain wife Kate's advice, she told the wheel there was a skellum, a blethering, blustering, drunken blellum, that frae November to October, a market day there wasna sober, that ilka milder with a miller, thou sat as long as thou had siller. That at the leads was even on Sunday, thou drank with Kirk and Jean till Monday. She prophesied that later soon they would be found deep drowned in Doon, or catch the warlocks in the murk by Alloway's old haunted kirk. I think we'll finish it there, Jim, because I've already made one mistake. And I'm getting a bit dry.
Well done, Andy. Fantastic.
Well done.
Well, it really just leaves for me to say, well, first of all, that if you ever manage to get over to Scotland around about the nearest Friday to the 25th, you'd be very welcome at Newcombe at Burns Club supper. Yep. So keep that in mind for future years.
Thank you very much, Douglas.
And it really just leaves me to say thank you very much for giving us your time and telling us all about your life with Robert Burns. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Douglas. Thanks, Jim.